everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today we're going to be finding out if my favorites are still my favorites. So I have seen a couple of people recently, I've definitely seen Lauren and the Books and a Book Olive do videos where they have been reacting to their favorites lists from the past few years and reacting to them, discussing whether they are still like favorites, and then compiling a list of kind of their top favorite books of the past 5 years, I believe it was. I have also been on BookTube for 5 years. It was my 5-year anniversary at the end of December, on December 30th. So I wanted to do that, but rather than trying to cram it all into one video and reacting to all of my favorites from the past 5 years and trying to compile a top 10 list of all of those favorites, I decided that I wanted to do this in a series of videos. So I'm going to do it in a series of, I guess, like 6 videos. I'm going to react to my 2015 favorites, my 2016 favorites, my 2017 favorites, my 2018 favorites, and my 2019 favorites. So that's the 5 years in a separate videos each. And then I'll come back after that and do a separate video where I talk about all the ones that I did say I would still consider favorites and like which ones have made it into like an overall like top 10 of the past 5 years. So let's go through. I do have my laptop here teed up with the video of my favorites from 2015. So in 2015, I actually did a top 15 of 2015 because I like couldn't resist the 15 and 15 type of thing. I have no idea how to like insert like the reaction or any of that, like insert the video. So I'm not going to do that. You may hear some audio. I'll probably just watch the bit and then cut back in and talk about it. This video is going to be a lot more heavily edited than my usual, but so I'm sorry if that style doesn't work for you, but I have no idea what I'm doing. So I have the video right here that I'm going to click on. So let's find out what my favorite books were in 2015. Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Karen. This is my...
Okay, straight off the bat, I look like an actual fetus. This was only 5 years ago? Not even, because like when was this video published? January 2016, so 4 years ago. And I look so much younger. I think it's because I was a lot slimmer. This was the period where I had lost quite a bit of weight and I was looking a lot better. And my hair is actually quite short and dark. Anyway, that's not what we're here for. Let's find out what the favorites are.
My channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my top 15 books of 2015.
Yeah, you are.
So I ended up reading 151 books in
151 books.
2015. And I am actually quite picky with my 5-star ratings. I believe
Still true.
I only ended up giving about 11 books a full 5-star rating.
11. Interesting. So that means that I did a top 15 and still included books. Oops, sorry, I hit play. I still included books that I hadn't given 5 stars to, which is interesting because I've always been stingy with 5 stars, but I thought I had gotten stingier, which I think I have, but maybe not as stingy, like as stingier, is that even a word, than what I had thought.
A book really has to do a lot to kind of get me to give it 5 stars. So this list does incorporate some books that I gave 4.5 stars and 4.75 stars. And even though this list is 15 books long, because I could not escape the symmetry of top 15 in 2015. Also 2 books that I would like to just give an honourable mention really quick.
I did honourable mentions on top of the top 15? Do I include honourable mentions in... I think I will. I think anything that I mention is being like in the realm of favorites, because maybe I mentioned something as an honourable mention that like now I think about and I'm like, no, I actually love that book. It's going to be interesting to see books that have stayed, because I think there's kind of 2 things. The older video can have the advantage of the books having had time to sit with you for a while and to really like kind of fester. What a great word, like fester into being your favorites of all time. But then on the other hand, them being older means that can't remember some of them as clearly. Whereas with the newer favorites, it's kind of the reverse of that, in that the books haven't had time to sit with you and for you to really feel like whether they're going to be like have long-term like staying power. But on the other hand, they're really fresh, like the love of them is like fresh in your mind. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see if I fall more towards still loving some of the older books or the newer books, or whether there's a even split. Like, we'll see. I will definitely mention when I do the top 10 list, I will definitely mention like what year the books came from, so we can kind of maybe get a feel for how many came from like each year, or if there's years where like none of them make the list. Imagine if that's a thing.
Glee, the first of which is Jasper Jones by Craig.
Jasper Jones by Craig Silvey didn't even make my top 15. It was an honorable mention. Shit. I love that book. I still think about that book a lot. That is basically Australia's version of To Kill a Mockingbird. That's what it's described as. It's a historical set in a rural area in Australia where a boy one day gets a knock on his window late at night from an Indigenous boy from the area. Jasper Jones, that's who Jasper Jones is, knocks on his window and kind of takes him somewhere and shows him something that changes kind of the course of his life. And I think about that book a lot. So that was an honorable mention, but I think I would list that down and put that in the running for the top 10 of all time, because I really did love that book. Wow, that was only an honorable mention. Okay, this is going to be an interesting video to react to.
And while it's didn't quite make my top 15, I did want to mention it because it is a really great book that more people should read.
They should.
The other book that I wanted to give an honorable mention is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen.
Sense and Sensibility. Interesting. I do love Jane Austen, and I have a very different kind. I mean, Pride and Prejudice is my favorite Jane Austen, which is a very like cliche opinion. But apart from that, my ranking is very different to most people's ranking of Austen, because Sense and Sensibility is my second favorite Austen, whereas it's usually a lower ranked book for most people. But I think it's pretty close with Persuasion, but I think Sense and Sensibility edges it out as being my second favorite. But I don't think in a list of like overall top 10 of forever that would make the list. So I'm going to cut that one and I'm not going to include that in the running. Oh, I had like little title cards with the numbers. Oh, it's cute back then.
So coming in at number 15, we actually have another Jane Austen book, and that is Emma by Jane Austen.
I literally just said that Sense and Sensibility is my second favorite, but that was only an honorable mention, and I rated Emma in my favorites. Whereas now Emma would be like my fourth favorite. My ranking, in case you're interested really quickly, is Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Persuasion, Emma. They're all like in the top 4 and like my favorite of hers, because after that comes Mansfield Park and then Northanger Abbey, which I don't love the same way I love the other 4. But that's really interesting that so that's not going to be in the running, because if I didn't include Sense and Sensibility, then Emma's not going to make it. But that's so funny that now, these years on, Sense and Sensibility I consider to be more of a favorite than Emma, but Emma was in the favorites list. Who knows what Karen of the past was thinking?
Coming in at number 14, we have Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson.
Oh, I forgot that I only read Speak since I've had BookTube. Wow, okay, that's interesting. So Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson is a YA hard-hitting contemporary. It deals with a girl who in the summer between like middle school and high school, something horrific happened to her, and she has been like selectively mute kind of ever since. And it's about kind of her going to high school and dealing with the trauma and all of that. I've read that book again since then because I've read it in graphic novel format. And I also quite like the movie adaptation, which stars a very young Kristen Stewart. And again, I still think about that book. I've read it again since having read that. This was only number 14. I think I'm going to include that in the running. I don't know whether it would make a top 10 of all time, but I do really love that book and the message in it and all of that. So I think I'm going to include that. Oh my God, am I just going to include every book from these videos in the running? I may have to be more cutthroat, so pray for me.
Coming in at number 13 is Winterkill by Kate A. Borman. This is a YA
Winterkill? Okay, I have vague recollections of that book, but it has not stuck with me. From what I recall, that is a kind of dystopian, possible fantasy type setting. It's not fantasy because it's not magical, but it's set in like a dystopian type world where it's like a walled community, and I remember the main character has a bad leg, like she walks with a limp, and I really did like the representation of that in the story. Apart from that, I literally don't remember what this is really about. I kind of remember a few more details from the later books because this is a trilogy, but I'm not going to include that in the running because I literally had completely forgotten about this trilogy. I'm so surprised this made my favorites list, so that's interesting.
Coming in at number 12, we have Faking Perfect by Rebecca.
Oh, of course. Faking Perfect by Rebecca Phillips. I actually reread that towards the end part of 2019. So that is a book that I really enjoyed. I don't think it would make a top 10 list of favorites, so I don't think that I'm going to include that in the running, but it is a book that I really, really enjoy. It's a YA kind of / new adult, contemporary. It's about a girl who is in a purely sexual relationship with a boy from her school that she keeps like secret. Like they don't talk to each other outside of their sexual encounters, and she doesn't want him to tell anyone. And she's also always had a crush on one of her male friends, and things get complicated when the male friend starts to return her feelings, but also maybe the boy that she's had the sexual relationship with is maybe starting to show that maybe he wants more than just the sexual relationship. It sounds like a very like cliche plot, and it is, but I personally just think it's really, really well done. And I really enjoy that story overall. So yeah, I don't think it would make a top 10 list of like the past 5 years, but still a highly recommended read.
Coming in at number 11, we have Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. This is a book.
Forgotten about I've like literally forgotten about, not forgotten that I've ever read these or forgot, I just had no idea what was on this list. I really, really didn't. Okay, again, Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. Really, really, really enjoyed. I'm sure you all know what this one is about because it's hugely popular on BookTube. Again, I have read thrillers since this, that I have read, that I have enjoyed more than I enjoyed Big Little Lies. This would not make a top 10 list kind of the past 5 years, but it is a really enjoyable, like mystery. I wouldn't call it a thriller, I guess, more enjoyable mystery, like dramatic mystery. But like I said, that is another book that I did genuinely really enjoy, but it definitely probably wouldn't make a favorites list of all time.
Coming in at number 10, we have Walking on Trampolines by Frances Whiting.
Okay. I do remember this book because it's one of the first books that I ever read from NetGalley, and I gave it 5 stars, which is pretty rare for me with my NetGalley books. I have given, maybe even this is the only one, I don't know how many 5 stars I've given on NetGalley. It's not very many. This is a contemporary novel that deals with friendship. It's Australian as well, I should mention. It's basically about a girl who at the start of the novel, I didn't even really want to tell you because I just feel like you should go into it, because that first chapter like really hooked me in. Something happens at the start that's kind of like in the present day, I guess, time period, that you can see that the friendship between these two best friends is incredibly fractured, to put it mildly, and then you go back and you get kind of the story of their friendship and like kind of what happened, what's led them to this time period. And I loved this. This is one of the first books, well, that I read in my like days of BookTube that really dealt really heavily with friendship themes, which if you watch my channel then you know friendship themes is one of my favorite things to read about. So I'm not surprised that I put it on the list. Maybe on a reread, this would make my favorites of all time, because I just feel like I don't, like the feelings that I had for it are kind of have been dampened just by the passage of time. But it is probably one that I should put on a rereads list. I've already done my rereads list for 2020, which was in my 2020 goals video. And so I don't think I'll be able to fit in too many more rereads apart from what I've already mentioned, but maybe I should think about rereading that maybe next year and seeing like how I feel about it this many years on.
Coming in at number 9 is Exposed by Kimberly Marcus. This is...
Holy crap! Exposed by Kimberly Marcus, another book I had completely forgotten about. So this was a book that I bought from like the one like big book outlet order that I did right near the beginning of my channel. And it was funny because there were very few books from that book outlet order that I actually liked. The books that I had ordered from book outlet were a lot of the more unknown books because they're the cheapest and international shipping is just so ridiculous, hence why I've never placed another order. And so a lot of them were, I guess, more unknown and they didn't turn out to be that great. The other really great books from that order were the Grisha Trilogy. They were the more known books that slightly more expensive ones from that order. But this was another one that I didn't know anything about, and it's told in verse, I think. If I recall, it's told in verse, and it deals with again, heavy friendship themes, which obviously is one of my favorite things to talk about. Again, I think just purely through the passage of time, I don't think that I can include this in like a running for the top 10. But again, it's another one that I should definitely, I'm going to have to start compiling my list of rereads for 2021 already, because I, again, think that this is one that I should definitely reread and find out whether it like has staying power as like an all-time fave. Interestingly, that book actually, like I just watched what I said about it in that favorites video. It has a very similar plot to, what's that book? Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake, which I haven't read, which everyone raves about. So I'd be interested. I should probably do like a buddy like group read of those, like group them together and like reread Exposed and then read Girl Made of Stars and kind of see if that changes my thoughts in either of those two books. But anyway, moving along.
Coming in at number 8 is Dangerous Girls by Abigail Haas. This is a book.
Dangerous Girls. This is still one of my favorite, well, my favorite YA thriller that I've ever read. It's actually funny because thinking about it, this would be the highest rated thriller that I've ever gave, because I gave this a 4.75 star rating. And I don't think I've read any adult thrillers above a 4.5. So it's a thriller that I love. It's about a girl who is on spring break in Aruba when her best friend is murdered. And she is basically on trial for her best friend's murder. And you get several different time periods. You get the period around when the trial is happening, when she's on trial, the period around the time on spring break when the murder happened, and back in the early days of the friendship between her and the best friend. So again, heavy friendship vibe themes. Are you seeing like a theme here with like books that I enjoy? Clearly friendship themes has always been something that I love. I do think I'm going to put this in the running for my favorites of all time. I don't know whether it's going to make the final list because thrillers, it's so funny because I think that favorites list will not have very many thrillers on it because I love thrillers. It's my favorite genre, but I'm way harsher on them than I am on any other books. And I'm already a really harsh critic, I think, because I'm so stingy. But yeah, I'm going to put it in the running, but I don't know like how that will go in like a final overall tally. You'll have to wait till that final video to find out. But yeah, I do really love that book.
Camera angle just changed. I just ran out of memory on my memory card.
This happens to me all the time.
Footage. But coming in at number 7 is the Saga series by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Stick.
The Saga series. Okay. I don't think that's going to make the cut for like, because when I think about that, I kind of think about it as the series overall. And I know at this time of filming this, I think I had only read like the first 4 or 5 volumes, which were all 5 stars. And I do still love that series, and most of them have gotten 5 stars. I think the lowest rating I've given any of those is a 4 maybe. I mean, I do love that series overall, but I don't think that it would make the top 10 list of all time. Again, I'm not going to talk about what that's about because you all know what Saga is about, but yeah, I forgot that I like Saga would have made like a top favorites list. Like, this is so like nostalgic to watch Baby Karen talk about like books that I'd like forgotten. Like, I knew that I'd read Saga since I'd been on BookTube, but I just didn't even think about, like, of course it would have been in a favorites video when I first started that series. Of course it was.
Coming in at number 6 is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd.
Oh, and Agatha Christie. Okay, interesting. The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. This is one of the very early books in the Hercule Poirot series. I think maybe it's book 4. And I did love this. It's one of my favorites. When I think about my favorite, which is interesting because one of my favorite Poirots, I think I only gave like a 4, but thinking back on the series, that's what I mean about how books sometimes stay with you even though you didn't give them like a super high rating at the time, because Death on the Nile is probably one of my favorites. But The Murder of Roger Ackroyd is definitely one of my favorites because I think that what Agatha Christie did with that story, considering the time period in which it was written, is just mind-blowing. Agatha Christie as an author I just love because she's always doing such different things with her books. Like, she really is. She's constantly like, sometimes Hercule Poirot doesn't come into the story until like halfway through. Sometimes it's told through this character's perspective. Sometimes it's told through this. Like, she just is always changing up the way in which she's like telling the stories, which I just find so fascinating. Will this make the shortcut? I don't know. I think I'm going to put this in the running for the top 10 of all time. Maybe I should do like I feel like I'm not going to be able to cut this down to 10 books of like the last 5 years, but I guess that's the point, is to really challenge myself. I'm going to put that in the running, but again, not one that I'm sure would make a top 10 of all time. Well, of all time. It's not really of all time. I should stop saying of all time. It's of the past 5 years, because there are books that I have loved that I have read pre-BookTube, like Pride and Prejudice, The Book Thief, 2 of my favorite books of all time, that would not be on that list. So it's not a favorite of all time, it's a favorite of the past 5 years. So I need to keep that in mind. But yeah, okay, let's move on. Because that was 6? So we've still got my top 5 of this year to get through. Holy crap.
Coming in at number 5 is The Jewel by Amy Ewing.
I put The Jewel as Amy Ewing in my top 5? I don't know you. Okay, yes, I enjoyed that book. It wouldn't even come close to making a favorites list, like if I read it now. And I cannot believe that I had that in my top 5. Yes, I really enjoyed that book. It's a dystopian about a society where the women haven't really been able to have kids, can't really have kids anymore. Well, the royal women, not royal, the upper class women. And so there are girls who are basically trained to have children, and they have some kind of magical abilities as well that are trained to have kids and are then auctioned off to the highest bidder to basically be a surrogate mother for these like high class, upper class women. And it's very much a status symbol to have one of these, and even these girls really struggle with having children. And it's basically about that story, and we're following one of those girls. So yeah, I liked that book, but would it be an all-time favorite? Not an all-time, a favorite of the past 5 years? Heck no. Okay, moving right along.
Coming in at number 4 is Divergent by Veronica.
Divergent! Far out. Okay. Again, no way am I putting that in the running for a top 10 of the past 5 years. Yes, I love Divergent. I gave it 5 stars, and I still genuinely think that that's a good book. But that book has been really ruined for me by the subsequent books. The second book, I can't remember what I rated the second book, but I enjoyed it. It's nowhere near as good as the first, but I enjoyed it. But the third book, I still maintain, is the worst finale of a series in like literary history. In my literary history anyway. It is really, really, really bad, and that book shouldn't taint the rest of the series, but it still does. And I would have read this whole trilogy at the time that I did this, so I was still happy enough to put it on my favorites list, and that's fine. Like, I did really love the first book. I really, really did, but it wouldn't make the running for a top 10 of the past 5 years. So yeah.
Now note that just Divergent is coming in, not Insurgent or Allegiant, because I loved Divergent.
I'm so salty. But yeah, Allegiant is trash.
Coming in at number 3 is the Grisha Trilogy by Levi Dugu. Again.
Yes, the Grisha Trilogy will definitely go in the running. I should have remembered that that would be on this list, considering that I just mentioned that I got that in that same haul as that other book. Yes, I loved the Grisha Trilogy. I believe I gave the first book 4.5 and the second two both 5 stars. One of my favorite like fantasy series, YA fantasy series. I'm sure you all know what it's about. I'm super pumped for the TV show that's currently being adapted of this whole like world, including like the Six of Crows and all of that. It looks really great. The casting and all that looks amazing. So I'm really pumped for that. But yeah, I loved this trilogy. Will this be like loved enough to make a top 10? I don't know, but I'm going to include it in the running.
Apologies if the camera angle does change.
The camera angle changed again?
Sorry, just died because apparently we're having all the problems today. But jumping straight back into things, my number 2 book of 2015 was The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins.
I forgot that I read The Woman in White while I was on BookTube. Yes, that is definitely going in the running. I still consider that one of my favorite classics of all time. It's another one that I think I might include. I definitely need to put together that rereads list. I think I want to reread that one next year. I loved The Woman in White. It is, it's like very like gothic, classic. It's basically about a man who is walking down the road one day, one evening, when he comes across a woman in white. And he's then, once she's like kind of gone away on her way, he is approached by 2 men who's basically saying that this woman has escaped from a mental health facility. And he has to make a decision as to whether to tell them where she's gone. And then he makes a decision there that kind of affects everything moving forward. And I don't know if I want to tell you any more than that. This book was just so great. I loved it. It's got one of my favorite like kind of sister relationships I've ever read about. It's got characters to love, characters to loathe. It's just, I actually think I have a full review. I have a full review of that. I think it's like my most viewed video on my channel. I'll link that in the cards in case you guys are interested, but I loved The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. That's definitely going to go in the running for my top 10 of the past 5 years. I'm so interested to see what this number 1 is going to be, because with the way that this video is going, it could be something that I'm like, I cannot believe that I ever included as my favorite book of a year, or it could be something that I love. So let's find out. Number 1.
So coming in at number 1, my absolute favorite book that I read
in
2015 is Shadows by Paula Weston.
Shadows!
I loved this book.
Okay, Shadows by Paula Weston. Okay, at this time, I know that I hadn't read the whole series because I remember I read it because I had a copy from NetGalley. I don't believe it was like a current release on NetGalley. It might have even been like a read now, like they just happened to have a copy on NetGalley, and I got it and read it and loved it. And it wasn't until a while later that I managed to I bought the whole series like in physical copy, and then I reread it and reread the first book and continued on with the series. So this is a very underrated series in my opinion. This is, wow, yes, I loved this book. So this is a Australian series as well. So it's basically an angel series. It's about a girl who, like, you can tell that from the covers, I'm sure. It is about a girl who has been having her brother died like a year or something, like some period before, in a terrible car accident, and she suffered really horrific injuries as a result of that same car accident. And she's been dealing kind of with the trauma of that since, and she has these terrible nightmares every night, and part of the nightmares is that she's fighting these like demon creatures, and she's always in the dreams fighting alongside this boy. Well, this is new adult, I should say. It's not YA. She's like in her kind of, are they in their early 20s or then late? Anyway, it's like, it's new adult. She is fighting alongside this boy, and then one day she's out somewhere, and lo and behold, this boy literally from her dreams strolls in, and she gets real from there, and it's a great, great fun time. I guess like I have to think that for this list, I would just be including the first book, because my favorites list didn't include this series because I hadn't read the series at this point. It was just that first book. So do I want to put Shadows by Paula Weston in the running? I think I'm going to include it in the running because I genuinely do really love that book. Again, I'm not sure whether that is one that's going to make the final cut, but I think I'm going to include it in the running at this point. Okay, So that's the top 15. Give me a second. I'm going to try tally up the ones that I included in the running so I can give you guys an idea of how many from this video, which technically included 17 because they were the 15 and the 2 honorable mentions. So I'm going to quickly tally up how many I put into the running for the top 10. So give me a sec. I have 7. There are 7 from this video. To go over them quickly, they are Jasper Jones by Craig Silvey, Speak by Laurie Holtz Anderson, Dangerous Girls by Abigail Haas, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie, the Grisha Trilogy by Leigh Bardugo, The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins, and Shadows by Paula Weston. So that is 7 books that are already in the running from the first video to make a top 10. I'm gonna have to be so cutthroat. Yes, there are ones here that I said I can probably cut, and it's probably gonna end up that all of those are gonna be cut because I still have 4 more videos to react to before we get to even trying to make a list. Whew. This was a lot of fun. It was really fun to watch this video, and even, like I said, there were, clearly you can see from my reaction, there were books in here that I never would have expected to make a favorites list, which is just so funny. It's so interesting to see the books that made a list. I would almost be interested, I wasn't keeping a reading spreadsheet back then, but I would be interested almost to go through all of my videos from that first, like, almost year, like that 2015 year, and see what books I read that year that didn't even make like the favorites list that maybe now thinking back I would love them. I don't even know. Like Jasper Jones was only an honorable mention. Like what? So yeah, this was a lot of fun. I apologize that this video is probably really long. I've been filming for like 40 minutes, but I'm hoping a lot of this is going to be able to be cut in the editing process. But I apologize if this is really long. So I would love to chat with you guys in the comments down below what your guys' thoughts were on my favorites from 2015. Do you guys think I'm going to have a brutal time putting together a final list? Because I sure do. Also, let me know if you're excited to see my reactions to the next few years of favorites and to see my ultimate list of my top favorite books of the past 5 years. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. That is all I have for this video today. Bye, guys.